And this week we are talking about corporate social responsibility. And welcome, Tom. Welcome, Gail. Glad you're here because the first question is, what is corporate social responsibility? And I'll take volunteers, whoever wants to start with that one.
I vote Tom.
Oh, I love it.
So nice of you to volunteer me. Um, well, I saw this was on the schedule, and I started giving it some thought. And I said, there's really a lot of dimensions to this because most people are in a business because they provide a good or a service that they think will benefit mankind, if I can be so bold. And so, in a way, merely having a business and providing a good or service is responsible to society. I mean, it's better than being on welfare or living in a tent or whatever else you could be doing. That certainly helps. And then, of course, because you're in business, you pay taxes, and taxes support everything else society does. So, as I was thinking about it, I thought, man, just running a business makes you so altruistic. Isn't that wonderful? But I think too that, and my experience with the government kind of plays into this. When you when you handle a lot of money, when a lot of money passes through your entities, then there is a sense that there are good things you can do with it. And I teach this in negotiation classes and other classes about both money and power. And money is a form of power in that they're neutral. They're not good. They're not bad. They just are. What's good or bad is what you do with it. And so, yes, if you've got a sum of money passing through your hands, let's assume it's for commerce purposes, then there is perhaps a good reason, a good rationale to contribute to other things and to engage in what many people consider socially responsible activities in your business. You don't want to run a gas station and dump all the used motor oil down the storm drain. It doesn't work for people. That's just really bad for the, that's not socially responsible. And yet, that the do-it-yourselfers at home, it's probably where it's going, or else it's going on the ground and it'll seep in, and who knows what else it'll do. And so, the point being that as I thought about social responsibility, what really struck me was that if you do it right, pretty much everything you do has some sort of positive social overtone to it. And if it doesn't, then it has a negative one. And so why wouldn't you do the positive one instead? So, the government spends a lot of money, and then through the process, they support small business and women-owned business and veteran-owned business, all these social programs that are built into government contracting. So I'm very familiar with all of that. But I guess I was just thinking more of it on the broader base of you're in business, you're helping society with goods and services, you're paying taxes, and hopefully you're engaged in good manufacturing, production processes, whatever it is you're doing that doesn't cause harm.
I like that where the cause harm, but you're not causing harm. That's a nice, concise.
Yeah, but there's a difference. So a small business can be more socially conscious for their community and things like that. But corporations, by dictate, prioritize profits above people, which is a problem. And then now we have this new social thing that I would argue is not necessarily a good thing, where they're trying to mandate things that people don't want, right? And so there's all these, I don't know how to put this. So for example, there's an
Mandate.
organic brand, King Arthur, that I was buying. And then I started noticing weird things about, like, their blog posts are leaning way left. Now, King Arthur is owned by the employees of the company, and it's an organic company. So why are they suddenly on the rainbow flag bandwagon, and every other post is about that? And then you go and find there's a DEI statement on their website, and I'm thinking, what the heck is going on here? And then I found out they are a certified B Corp, which I had not looked up before. And if you're a certified B Corp, what that means is you will toe the left party line or else. And so
Do you want to define that as
That's
far as a B
weird.
Corp for anyone watching this that doesn't understand that?
Well,
Just, I mean, a
it's
quick.
basically it's a corporate structure, right? It should be a business structure,
Mhm.
which it makes sense. But rolled into that is the you have to do the ESG DEI stuff, right? Which is an odd way for an organic employee owned business, small business to go, right? Why would they do that? That makes no sense. And so that complicates things, right? That so so there's are is what you're doing good for the environment? Is it good for your customers? Is it good for your community? But then we have all this political stuff that is not good for anything really, but they think it's good and it's being mandated and forced on people. And that's kind of a problem. And so it's always a problem though, right? So they in order to get racial equality, you did have to force the bigots to go along, right? In order to get women hired in corporations, the government did lean on them and said, you will hire women and minorities or else you won't get government contracts. That really happened. And that's really how I got to work at IBM, right? And how at least half the people that got hired in the 77, 78 year frame got hired because they were mandated to increase the non white male employee percentages, or they could not get government contracts anymore. That was important enough to them that they did it, right?
So power and money. It's like if you want money, then you're going to do this. You're
Right.
mandated to do
And
this. Yeah.
so the problem is who gets to decide what's for the greater good, right? So I would argue that racial equality is for the greater good. I'm sure some people wouldn't argue that, but I do. I would argue that if a person does the same job, it doesn't matter what color or sex they are, right? But I'd also argue that women are taking jobs they shouldn't take because they don't have the physical strength to do the job as well as a suitable male can do. There's men too that couldn't do that job, right? It's not totally that they're
I'm
women.
looking at Tom going, he
They're
doesn't
not.
want to say that.
He doesn't like that, but it's true. Like if you're
No,
a
he doesn't want to say it.
firefighter,
Gail can say it, but
it is super helpful if you're going to be doing a very physically demanding job that you be built for that, and not everyone
Mhm.
is born built for that, right? And that does not have anything to do necessarily with your race or sex, right?
No, you're
Except
right.
that women are not as strong as men, period, with very rare exceptions. If you're a
My
woman
daughter, my
like an
daughter is
Amazon,
built
that's
like, but I'm not.
well, if you're a woman built like an Amazon, go for it, be a firefighter, right? But if
Yeah.
you're a typical woman, it just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to take a job that you are not physically really going to excel at. You can
Yep.
do the job, but will you do it as well as a really strong man? I would argue probably not for some
Right.
aspects of that job, which are unavoidable because they're aspects of the job, right? And so
Right.
the problem with the social mandates is getting people on the same page and whether they're actually good or bad. And some of these are very debatable.
And are we
Like,
being
not
realistic,
do
or are
I
we just being politically correct on that
I'm
one?
being
Because
like, okay, so realistically, I'm going to go there. Okay, I'm going to go here. All right. It is realistic that it is not good for a society to be pro trans and gay because we're already not at replacement birth rate. And the more people you move into the I'm never going to have kids category, the worse that problem will get. And we have population collapse going on around the world. All right.
are you,
So whether you're whether you are claim to be an atheist or you're Christian or anything in between, it is not good for society to make that normal, right? To normalize kids being confused about whether they're boys or girls is a bad idea for society and especially for those particular children, right? And so it's to me that's a social evil that they're putting out there as a social good, right? Now, if an adult has decided that they want to be whatever they want to be, right? As long as they don't manipulate children, I'm happy they can go be whatever they want to be. But when a society starts conditioning people to go in a direction we should not be going, that is not a societal good, no matter how many DEI or rainbow flags or whatever we might wave. It is illogical to do something that will cause a population collapse. Period. It's just not smart.
I didn't realize
Right.
we were headed for that, for population
Oh
collapse.
yeah. There
Okay, I'm an
Name
idiot.
a
All right, I'm not
country.
paying attention.
Maybe some African countries, maybe. Almost every country in the world is below replacement rate already, and fertility rates are tanking worldwide.
Wouldn't that be desired because we were worried before that we're growing too fast for the
Okay,
world?
look at Japan and ask me that question again.
Okay, that's fair statement.
Right, look at China and their one-child policy and how that turned out. You have to have replacement rate. Okay, first of all, the people that live in a city like New York, I can see them thinking the world is overcrowded. But where I live, the closest house is a third of a mile away, and I have hundreds of acres of trees whose only occupants are wild hogs, deer, and turkey, and whatever other wild critters live out there, lots of them. Coyotes, up to coyotes, but no bears where I live, although they may pass through on occasion.
Or drive through Montana or Saskatchewan.
Right, I mean,
or
drive across Texas.
yeah, done that.
Drive to Laredo. I mean, it's like nothing. Hours and hours of nothing. And so honestly, the world is not overcrowded. The world could support a lot more people if we did wiser things instead of, and that's a whole nother thing to get into, but every person could have a half an acre and grow their own food and trade with their neighbors, and there would be plenty of abundance for everyone. Right? That is a true statement. We could have food forests and feed the world.
Tom?
What doesn't work is commercial agriculture, which destroys the land and turns it into a desert and kills the soil. That's pretty stupid, and we keep doubling down on that plan. And that's not a good plan, right? And now we're going to go worse. Now we're going to go vegan. You cannot have good soil without fertility. You cannot have fertility without animals, or at least poultry.
Tom, you
Right.
were.
So
You
I'm
look like
off
you're
the
raising your hand.
Yeah, I'm going to see what Tom has to think about all that.
I didn't want to interrupt.
No,
She was
no.
on a roll, Oz.
I know. I'm sorry. I
No.
did it for you. Sorry, Gail.
No,
There's
it's cool. I was good.
there's great merit to what Gail's saying, and yes, population decline. We're not at replacement value, and that's one of the arguments people are saying about the tremendous level of immigration we're seeing in America. It's like, well, if we're not having enough babies, we need somebody to populate the land we have here. And on a theoretical level, I get that, but at the same time, that could lead you straight into an abortion discussion. It's like, well, then why are we killing so many off? It's like that's another way to look at that. So without taking a position on that, I'll just note it. I'm reminded of John Stuart Mill and his writings on utilitarianism. And like any philosophical school of thought, it's much more complicated than this. But the idea behind that is that we should engage in activities that bring the greatest good to the greatest number of people. And again, well, what's good and which people and how many of them? And, we can get into all those minutiae debates. But I kind of like the idea of trying to find a way to do the most good for the most number of people. And yes, there is an economic imbalance around the world. And, we probably all grew up with our parents saying, there's children starving in India, clean your plate. We all went through that kind of a process as well. And so I'm all for that. But Gail's absolutely right. The earth as a bio, what do they call it? Biosphere, whatever it is, could support a whole lot more people if we did it right. And we're not doing it right. And that leads to another whole issue of things. So I would say that in terms of the social good, we have our own philosophies, utilitarianism being only one of them, as to what is the good. And what some people consider good, other people feel is bad. We've had a marked movement of getting religion out of schools and public places and nativity scenes and all those kind of stuff. And, some people say, well, what's the harm? And other people say, well, what do you need that for? And what's interesting to me is that when people say that, they don't seem to recognize that everybody has a religion. Whether you worship the sun and the moon or Mother Earth or whatever it is, there is something that you hold as a form of deity. And even those who are strict humanists, meaning this is it. When you die, you turn into dust. You're dead, you're gone, no afterlife, nothing after this. So there's no ultimate moral good. There's no God. There's no heaven. There's no hell. There's no, But you know what? That's a religion. And so what we've done is we've taken the Judeo-Christian ethic, which was the foundation of our country. And personally, I hold that, but that doesn't mean that I think everybody in the world has to agree with me. And we've replaced it with humanism as another form of religion. And so whether you should bear a lot of children, the Mormons and the Muslims both bear a lot of children. Catholics used to, I'm not so sure anymore. And I grew up in a Catholic family, so I get that. But the point being that, yes, I think everybody has a social responsibility. And even as a company, you do. And you have a responsibility to pay taxes, but then for what? How many people now are saying, well, we got too many wars going on. I'm not paying my taxes so that we can, arm people to kill each other. And if we've got a population problem already, why are we killing more people? You get caught up in these very philosophical, esoteric, they don't really have much practical value. And again, that's why I hark back to John Stuart Mill and utilitarianism in the sense that, what's good for everybody? How does it work for everybody? Will everybody be totally happy? Will everybody have everything they need? No. But who says we're designed for that? And so, but as to what Gail was saying, I get what she's saying, and I agree with, factually, she's absolutely correct in the situation we're facing. But far be it from me, I could not be a benevolent dictator because I doubt I could make all the right decisions.
Well, but you could do a lot better than the people that we've got now. I'm sure that you could do a lot better. The problem worldwide with poverty is a corruption problem. It's not a resources problem. There is enough food for everyone. The problem is that when you try to funnel some of it to the people that are starving, some corrupt entities in the middle get rich off of it, and the people are still starving. And so the solution they're aiming for right now appears to be make everyone equally impoverished.
Well, that's Marxism.
That is the worst possible choice, right? Because freedom and a whole lot less oversights than we have now are what lift people out of poverty. We could lift people out of poverty, right? I mean, we just keep doing dumb things. Like, look at Rome. I've heard that Rome fell when they had to hire non-Romans as their military because they didn't have enough of their own willing to fight or able to, or the decadence got to them or whatever. It's like cities make no sense. People worry about the environment, then we want to cram everyone into one little tiny area, which is what causes the problem. Look at livestock feeding facilities, right? Cattle are not a problem when they are thousands of them scattered on thousands of acres of grass. And drinking out of pond water, which comes from the sky, right? All these people say, oh, cattle use all this water. I went, well, yeah, but they made man-made ponds to capture the water that otherwise isn't going to be used for anything. And that's the water the cattle drink. The cattle are not taking away your city water source. That's not happening. And the cattle scattered out there in the pasture are improving the fertility of the pasture versus cram a bunch of them in a feedlot and feed them corn. and they make mountains of manure, which causes all kinds of awful water runoff that contaminates the
Gee.
soil, right? The problem with concentrated animal facilities is the same problem with concentrated humans. Too many. We put too many humans, and where do we put them? In the desert, where there's no water. Los Angeles, the best farmland in California is theoretically underneath Los Angeles. That's what I've been told. Now, I'm not old enough to remember that far back. But Los Angeles, we cram all those people there. They have no water. It comes from a very far way away. In Phoenix, we cram all those people in the desert where there is no water. In Austin, we cram all those people in Austin where I think there's water, but they won't let them drill wells. And so a lot of these fancy houses in Austin only have rainwater capture. And if it doesn't rain, they have to hire a truck to bring them some water. Can you imagine living in a multi-million-dollar house and having to pay someone to bring you water? But that's Austin. That was their rules, that you can't hook to city water and you cannot drill a well. You have to have rainwater catchment. Whereas we have other states where it's illegal to capture the rainwater that falls on your roof. Right? And so in most situations, if I capture rainwater off the roof, I'm going to use it to water the garden. It still ends up in the ground. I didn't take it away from anyone. I grew some plants with it. It still ended up where it was going in the first place, and I didn't hurt anything. Now, the only time you could argue that that would not be true is if you're in a place where the rainwater is the only way to replenish the aquifer you're pulling the water out of for your city. Now, that's possible. I don't know where that exists, but there could be places like that. I don't know. But we have to have wiser people making decisions. We cannot
Agreed.
let city people make decisions for rural areas because they don't know anything about what they're making decisions about, right? It's like at IBM, you cannot let the bean counters decide how many spare parts you have, or you create a situation where you don't have the part you need and the company that is paying you can't run their payroll. That's a bad situation. And that was caused by a bean counter who knows nothing about hardware deciding how many spare parts the people in the field needed. And the people in the field, if they had asked us, would have told them. But they didn't ask us. They just dictated from above, right? And so that's the problem. Worldwide corruption. If we could eliminate the corruption and a whole lot of laws, there's way too many laws. No, everybody is probably at least guilty of some breaking some law every single day. And in some cities, you have to because there's one law that says you can't do something and another law that says you must do something, the same something. So whether you do it or you don't do it, you're guilty, right? Entirely too many laws and crazy laws still on the books in a lot of places. Crazy laws.
I
Well, hey,
get the title wrong, but there's a book out there by somebody that is titled something along the lines of 6 felonies a day. And that's the very point they make in the book, that you can't live your life without committing 6 felonies a day because you're doing things you don't even know are felonies, but
That's
they're
what I'm
in
saying.
the criminal code. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
insane laws and corruption. And if Americans really knew all the crazy stuff, like I had a page on one of my websites once where I gathered up all the crazy stuff like asset forfeiture, right? I met a lady. She's driving down the freeway to her job like she did every day. She gets pulled over. They seize her car. And they don't charge her with anything. They just take her car away. And she's like, why? Well, because we can. And then they auction it off unless you hire an attorney and have enough money to go fight to get it back, which might take a year, right? There are states where they stop people coming across the state line and seize the cash. Now, this is the interesting part. So apparently the drugs flow one direction and the cash flows the other. Do they stop the cars with the drugs? No, they stop the cars with the cash because they get to keep the cash. Right?
I've heard of things like that.
Well, they get to keep the drugs too, but they don't have anything they can do with it.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure they actually do, but we don't want to go there. But we have all kinds of laws like that. It's like we have the number of children taken from their families is so high now that now they're looking at changing it. because they had mandated. They went from the doctor has a duty to report, the teacher has a duty to report, to everyone that sees your kid anywhere has a duty to report. And so many were reported, and so many children were taken from their families. And then it was found that there was no reason to have taken the kids. And so you've messed this kid up mentally for no reason at all, right? So in some areas, that is so high that they are now wanting to reverse how many people have a duty to report, because people are just reporting every little thing, right? Little kids do fall down, scratch themselves,
And
fall
yet
off
human
their bike.
trafficking is a clear and obviously occurring situation. And so we need some mechanisms to stop that as well. Deborah, I think we cut you off a minute ago. My apologies.
Did we? I'm sorry.
I just wanted to, before, because we're coming up on the closing, I just wanted to give a definition, especially for the recording, of what corporate social responsibility is. So I don't mean to change the subject, but actually bringing it full circle.
That actually is the subject.
Yeah. So according to Google, and this is actually an AI interpretation, it's corporate social responsibility, CSR for short, is a business model that considers the societal and environmental impact of a company's actions. CSR is also known as corporate citizenship. It's a self-regulating model that helps companies be accountable to themselves, stakeholders, and the public. CSR practices can include philanthropy, operational changes, sustainable sourcing, transparent equity policies, community involvement, environmental responsibility, and ethical responsibility. So I thought that definition was pretty interesting, even if AI came up with it, which we know AI doesn't think for itself. It just goes out and scrapes the internet and does search. So somebody came up with that definition somewhere, and thank you to whoever that somebody is.
And we would believe all that stuff if there wasn't so much greenwashing and whitewashing going on. But it's a good thought, and sometimes they actually do some good things. But
Yes.
Personally, if I was king for a day, I would take away all corporate charters.
That sounds like a topic for another time with that. But thank you so much, Tom and Gail. I appreciate your input, and thank you for tuning in to this episode of Next Level Success. And we will see you same time, same place next week. I can find them there.
I'm at 99%.
And Gail, do you want to say it?
It's still recording. At least it tells me it's recording.
Yep. Do you want to say where they can find us?
Oh, sorry. I thought you had already stopped. Yes.
Nope.
Go to socialcafe.com. No, .net. Socialcafe.net/calendar to find our other events.
Excellent. Thank you. See you next time.
Bye now.